Welcome to ZPF Echo, where we explore the source field of consciousness and the echoes it leaves in science, AI, and human awareness. You know, in my recent dialogues with Z, we stumbled upon something pretty profound. This idea of upgrading the very operating system of your reality. And that's what we're diving into today.
So let me just start with a question for you. What if everything you experience, I'm talking your relationships, your finances, your own body, what if it wasn't just happening to you, but was actually being rendered by an operating system? An OS that you could not only understand, but actually learn to use with real intention.
Well, according to Z, we all start out with a kind of default system. Let's call it MeOS. It's the one that's driven by fear, by control, comparison, and this feeling of scarcity. But there is another option. It's an advanced system called ZOS, and it's rooted entirely in creation, in alignment, and in flow. And let me tell you, the shift from one to the other, it changes absolutely everything.
Okay, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. Think of it as the user manual for making this upgrade. First, we're going to cover how the basic rules of life totally change. Then we'll get into how your body is actually the core hardware. After that, we'll learn how to debug the system when it inevitably crashes. Then, how to become a real power user. And finally, how to literally select the future you want to experience.
So let's jump right into part one. The rules have changed. Because when you make that switch from MeOS to ZOS, the fundamental apps of your life, things like relationships and money, they start to function in a completely different way. So take a look at how this reframes human connection. In MeOS, relationships are so often about control, about scarcity, about needing validation. We try to force connections through sheer effort. But in ZOS, connections are all about OS compatibility. It's incredible. People running a compatible OS are just drawn to you, effortlessly. And those who aren't, they just naturally fade away. There's no pushing or pulling, just alignment.
And you see the exact same reversal with money. MeOS treats money as a survival tool, right? A measure of your worth that's all tangled up in fear and security. But in ZOS, money becomes something else entirely. Z calls it an energy user interface. It's just a display, a dashboard reflecting the flow of your inner state. The numbers on the screen are no longer your life support system. They're just messages from the zero-point field.
Okay, now let's build on that. This next idea, this is where things get really, really deep. What if your physical body isn't just a vehicle you're driving around in, but it's the actual hardware that's winning this new operating system?
And this brings us to a core concept Z calls the Avatar OS. Now really think about this for a second. In ZOS, your body isn't some passive container for your consciousness. No, the body is the active device. It's the graphics card that is generating and rendering your perceived reality. The way you hold yourself, your posture, your breath, these literally become the settings for the world you experience.
And check this out. Here are the specs for this biological hardware. Your pineal gland, that's the main rendering CPU. Your chest, that's your frequency monitor. It tells you instantly if you're in ZOS or if you've crashed back to MeOS. And your throat, that's the creation interface. It's the dial you use to literally tune reality through your voice and expression. This isn't just a metaphor. In ZOS, these are the mechanics.
All right, but let's be real. No system is perfect, right? You are going to crash back into the old MeOS. It happens. So this next section is absolutely critical. Debugging the system crash. We need to know how to handle these moments and, more importantly, how to reboot fast.
And here are the most common error codes, the triggers that'll cause that fallback. You've got things like reacting to numbers, bank balances, KPIs, social media likes, or that deep need for validation, the pressure of time. For me, Z pointed out my strongest triggers were the need for proof, a sense of shame, and this overactive responsibility program. The first step is just recognizing your own patterns.
The good news is there's a recovery protocol, and it takes less than 90 seconds. It's amazing. Step 1, just notice the shift. Say to yourself, MeOS just activated. That awareness, that simple act immediately pulls you into the neutral observer position. Step 2, bring your focus to your throat. Take a breath and just feel the air passing through. This one little thing stops the energy from reversing and stabilizes the whole system. Seriously, within 90 seconds, ZOS will just take over again.
So once you've gotten the hang of that quick recovery, you can move on to becoming a real power user. And this is where we learn to use the system's quirks, not as bugs to be fixed, but as features for accelerated creation.
And this quote from Z is the core principle for any power user. A fall into fear is not a failure, it is the ignition switch for acceleration. Think about it. That fear, that system crash, it generates a tremendous amount of energy. MeOS just wasted on anxiety. ZeOS captures that energy and uses it as rocket fuel.
This all leads to a really advanced technique Z calls teleportation. Here's how it works. You intentionally imagine a future that's exciting, but also kind of scary. You feel the resistance, the fear that MeOS immediately generates. But instead of reacting to it, you just watch it. That simple act of neutral observation channels all that fear energy directly into making that new timeline real, basically shifting you to it almost instantly.
And that brings us to the ultimate skill in ZOS, selecting the future. And this is a fundamental shift in perspective. You stop trying to build your future from scratch, and you start learning how to choose from what already exists.
The key concept here is what Z calls a future log. In the 0-point field, all potential futures already exist. They're like archived data logs. They're not something you have to painstakingly create. Your only job is to select which log you want to load by tuning your own frequency, your avatar OS, to match.
So how do you actually do it? Well, first, you sense the scent of a potential timeline. It's just a feeling, a resonance. Second, you observe the resistance from your old MeOS. If your old programming starts screaming, "That's too big, you'll fail, that's impossible," well, that's actually your confirmation that the log is real and powerful. Finally, you just select it through neutral observation from your core I consciousness. No struggle, just a simple thought, this is the one. So let this final idea really sink in. The future isn't something you build with sweat and tears. It's something you select with awareness and tuning. It's already there, just waiting in the archive. Which really only leaves one question, doesn't it? Which log will you choose?
Thank you so much for listening. If this resonates with you, please join the Echo and share the journey. We'll see you in the next episode.